Good afternoon and welcome everyone to our meeting of December the 10th. The time is 3:07 and we will call this meeting to order.
How are you?
Ms. Jennifer, do we have quorum?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Wonderful. If you would, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Regular agenda, consent agenda, excuse me.
So at this time, we do move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of items number 4 through 14. Are there any items on the consent agenda that the board members would like to pull for additional discussion?
Anyone? No?
May we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes?
Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Thank you. The consent agenda is approved. We now move to our regular agenda. Agenda item 15, receive and take appropriate action on the CEO report for the El Paso County Hospital District doing business as University Medical Center of El Paso. Mr. R. Jacob Cintron, President and CEO.
Good afternoon. Just going right into the program, we had, as a district, presented our update to the county commissioners on Monday, December the 2nd. In that, we provide general updates for the quarter as well as highlights through the last 3 months, and in this case, the last 6 months for them, since the third quarter review was used for the budget prep and budget presentation. The feeling of commissioners were very impressed with the work and the performance we've done. They're very much aware of our growth and our capacity issues, and certainly are aware that we need to do something. And they were also very impressed with our response during the August 3rd mass shooting, where Texas Tech, El Paso Children's, UMC, and others were actively involved. Certainly, we had our board members here. We also had our commissioners here during that event. So really appreciated everybody's help in that. Additionally, our 2 new satellite departments are scheduled to open in January. We'll be doing ribbon cuttings for the Northeast Satellite ED on January the 10th. And we'll be doing the East Side Satellite ED on January the 24th. The Northeast ED satellite is located in the UMC Texas Tech Clinic right on Cohen Drive near the corner of Cohen and Kenworthy. And the East Satellite Clinic is located and attached to the UMC Clinic on Joe Batten. And both are about 11,000 square feet in size, so that's going to be pretty good for us. We had our December 5th meeting, Teaching Hospitals of Texas. I'm the chair this year for that. And in that, we received a number of presentations about what's going on legislatively related to governmental supplemental funding. We had a presentation by an attorney from Iman Associates in D.C. regarding the proposed CMS Medicaid Fiscal Accountability Regulation and all the different programs that CMS is currently reviewing and its potential impact throughout the nation and in Texas as well. So we continue to follow that closely in terms of some of the legislation they're looking at. For example, in supplemental payments or IGTs, they're looking at one proposal that would utilize IGTs could be supported with funds other than patient revenue, which then will reduce the amount of IGT we could do. Now the intent, because one of our consultants was the director for Medicaid for CMS up until a few months ago. And some of these things that are happening is really, in some cases, designed to make the program more efficient, but in some cases it's also designed to reduce expense, because at the federal level they're trying to reduce the amount of funds they put in. On the other hand, Ruben Vogt, our government relations person, said that currently over at the federal side they are looking at the possibility of delaying dish cuts for a couple more years. And in that, they're also looking at things related to drug price transparency, trying to limit the increase in rate for drugs that go over the inflation amount. One thing that was very important for us was They also include that when you're looking at the dish amount in terms of what you put in for uncompensated care, that you cannot count revenue that comes in on top of your uncompensated care issue, which some children's hospitals were using down in Central Texas. So that's going to be cleaned up, and that'll help us in terms of our uncompensated care flow here, because it reduces that drain from the UC pool in the state. In terms of financial highlights, and many of you are aware, now it's just very brief, but we had our highest monthly funded payer mix in the month of October, 68%. We also had the highest monthly cash collections of $24.5 million. Pharmacy monthly cash collections exceeded $3 million for the first year ever, and then our admissions and average daily census were up and higher than the previous prior 2 years. Our length of stay actually dropped. It was the lowest in October than it's been in the last 2 years, despite the fact that our case mix index at 1.4 was the highest in the last 2 years. So what that means is we're getting more complex patients, but our length of stay is dropping, and that's a good combination. Couldn't do it, I hate to say it, because he's standing right next to me and he knows it's coming, but thanks to Dr. Lang and his medical staff, thanks to Dr. Tyrock as chief of staff back there, who's going to be upset if I don't mention his name at least a couple of times. But really, this is an example of our partners and we working together to provide great care and to do it in an efficient manner. So I want to thank our partners and our nursing staff as well, and case management for making this possible, and the patient throughput team with Jesus Reveral and Joe Garcia. And then many of you were there for the first responders honored. This is as a result of the shooter event that occurred on August 3rd. And so Tri-West Healthcare Alliance flew in their board in November for this special event where they honored the first responders. So we had our Texas Tech partners, we had law enforcement, everyone there, as well as our UMC staff. And it was really an opportunity for them to thank the first responders. They had the victims and their families there as well, the survivors, as well as one of their own employees had been a victim, and she went up and spoke. And it was really interesting because she's talking about how she's laying there, multiple gunshots, so she thinks she's going to die, and so she's calling her mom to say goodbye. And her mom interrupts her and says, "Well, where are you?" He says, "Well, I'm at the Walmart, this location." She goes, "I'm going to have your dad go pick you up. I'll call you back," and hung up on her. She says, "I'm there calling my mom to say goodbye," and she hung up on me. And so I've laid there for a while. Then her mom calls her back, says, "Dad's on the way," but kept her on the phone. We talked to the person that actually saved her life. And, you talk to him, and he's like, "I'm not a hero," sat with Joy and her husband at their table, very humble. But you see all these heroes that did extraordinary things and saw it as just part of the normal thing they should do every day. So it was very inspiring, and we were really honored to be a part of that event. Related to the Baldridge application, we did submit our progress recognition level assessment on November 25th to the Quality Texas Foundation. This is our ongoing journey to really adopt. It's nice to think about, we want to get the recognition, but the key here is learning the process that helps us quantify in a common methodology that other hospitals of high quality use in terms of using like the Six Sigma and using Lean. But it's also a common language on how you measure your metrics, how you communicate, and how you hold one another accountable. And so this is part and parcel to the ongoing training. We're also providing our leadership to be able to be qualified in terms of Sigma and getting their green belts, black belts, and in some cases their master black belts. With that, I'm going to pass this to Ryan, who typically is camera shy, but he's going to go over the UMC minutes, and then he's going to show you our latest commercial.
Right. As we've done in prior meetings, we show our UMC minutes. It's a look back on the prior year. prior month, I should say. That'd be a long video, wouldn't it, the prior year? However,
Feels long now.
there we go. And that was November. What we're going to show you next is our new video. Now, some of you who attended our ribbon cutting September 12th will recognize this clinic. This is the new UMC Heart Rhythm Clinic, and you might recognize some of the faces that are in it. So without further ado, go ahead. Is that thing linked? There we go. Let's click on that.
Throughout our lives, our hearts beat to their own rhythm. When our hearts beat out of rhythm, serious complications can occur in young and old alike. In El Paso, there's now a place that helps you keep the beat in time, every time. It's at University Medical Center Heart Rhythm Clinic. The future of heart care has arrived with state-of-the-art advanced technology and cardiac specialists at UMC.
Call today for an appointment at University Medical Center. We care for El Paso.
Now, you may recognize that voice, the first voice. It's a very friendly, very jovial voice that you hear at every one of these meetings, and she's in the back of the room. That was Jennifer. So, at any rate.
I'm not used to hearing a friendly voice from Jennifer.
But at any rate, that is our newest commercial. Thank you.
Right.
And that concludes my report. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
That's true. You want to make that comment real quick, if you don't mind? I think that's...
I was just mentioning that, it was just such a fantastic idea to move away from the iLab to the, heart rhythm clinic, because people generally have a better understanding when they hear the heart rhythm clinic versus when we talk about, the iLab, the interventional lab. So thank you so much. That was a great move.
Great video. Thank you, Jake.
Okay, may we have a motion to accept the CEO report?
So moved. Second.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes.
Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Ms. Arrieta? Yes. Thank you. The CEO report is accepted. We now move to Agenda Item 16, discuss and take appropriate action on the agreement for the Selection Committee's recommendation for Clinical Operations Improvement Initial Assessment, RFQ 9100819001, and upon approval by the Board of Managers, the authorization for the President and CEO to negotiate and execute the agreement. Mr. Michael Nunez, Chief Financial Officer.
Okay, this item is behind tab K. With me today is going to be Raju Shah, who's our Assistant Administrator, Revenue Cycle Department, and then also Jesus Reverol, who's our Director of Management Engineering, who are also both on the Selection Committee. What the objective is here is that what we're trying to do is we were seeking qualifications from third-party consulting firms to assess improvements in the following clinical areas. In our clinical operations, to include recommendations for potential redesign of our care management department, improvements in our multidisciplinary care coordination rounds, reductions in length of stay, assist us with readmissions, critical care telemetry, utilization, mortality, and cost per cases. One of the items, which we are facing is the inpatient bed capacity challenges. So one of the things that we're trying to assess is in terms of, are there opportunities to try to reduce the length of stay so we can try to get patients out quicker to relieve some of the stress that's down in our emergency department. Plus also, this was a similar thing that El Paso Children's Hospitals did earlier this year, probably about 6 months ago as well too. On August 11th, we did publish this this RFQ. This did go out to about 20 consulting firms. This was also posted in the Greater Chamber of Commerce website, and then also on the UMC website on August 12th. This was published in the El Paso Times on August 11th and also August 18th. The initial closing date for the RFP respondents was August 28th. And then was it to be received no later than September the 6th. This was extended, however, to about September 19th due to there were many questions from some of the RFP respondents with this. At the bottom of page 1 is the evaluation criteria that we used. On page 2, we did receive about 16 responses to this. I won't go through all the names. The selection committee for this RFQ was Dr. Joel Hendricks, who's the Chief Medical Officer, Raju Shah, Assistant Administrator, Revenue Cycle Management, and then Jesus Reverol, Director, Management Engineering. From the initial review, we did bring in 7 finalists to do on-site presentations with this, and I won't list the names. Was that some of the things that they recommend? So the selection committee, after the on-site presentations, did select Vizient. Was it for the following reasons? One, in terms of the depth of their experience and resources allocation to this project, their experience and the expertise in working with large not-for-profit organizations as well as academic hospital systems, the use of benchmarking tools for any type of comparative analysis, and then their dedicated clinical expertise. With this, so these are some of the things that we're going to be looking forward to in trying to, as I said, in terms of the overall objectives, to try to get some clinical flow improvements along with our length of stay, et cetera. If there's any questions, we also have our team members who were on the selection committee, if there are any questions from the board members.
Any questions from the board?
I was just curious in terms of the outcomes as a result of the consulting that was done at the Children's Hospital. Was that pretty favorable, and we expect to see the same? Is it the same company?
Yeah. Do you?
You mentioned they were at the Children's Hospital 6 months ago.
Yeah. Why don't you come up?
It is not the same company. That same company was invited to come and do the presentation. However, that company was the third one on the choice list. So basically, Vizient was the first one on top of the list after the presentations were done. And based on the presentation, it was me, Dr. Hendricks, and Jesus Reverol. We decided to go ahead and go with Vizient.
And have we seen, how significant of an impact have we seen there as a result of the services we've received?
I was actually on the steering committee for the Children's Hospital for the implementation that they did. They did see improvement in length of stay reduction. They did see the clinical documentation improvement. They did see more improvements in the medical records, on the compliance rate, on the coding side. where it was about 75% compliance versus we were able to bring it up to about 90% compliance rate. So they did see, I don't know exactly dollar-wise, there are different dollars associated with length of stay reduction, the improvement in clinical documentation and the coding part of it. And they also did the case management improvement too at the same time in guiding them in doing the daily roundings and putting more discipline in doing what needed to get done on daily basis, weekly basis, and monthly basis.
So the investment was well worth the,
As far as my knowledge goes, yes, based on the committee member, yes, it was well worth it. And I think that's the similar concept we want to bring it here at UMC to instill more discipline and achieve better results clinically as well as length of stay reduction and like Michael was saying, associated with the capacity management.
okay, great, thank you.
So if I might add, Joy, that this tailors into a lot of the projects we have going on. So hopefully with this, we're able to then be able to have a better structure on how we move forward, because it's going to take some change in how we do things. Our length of stay is very complicated, as anybody can tell you, and those are some aspects of it. The clinical documentation improvement is going to be very important as we move forward, because that affects reimbursement. It affects a lot of different things. So I think that gives us an outside source by which to look at things. Do we need to change some things? And so as we move forward, we're working not in little parts, but as a plan.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, if I may add, on the last page, on page 3 of the executive summary, the cost for the assessment is about $465,000. Now, this is just the first piece. Now, there may be the implementation piece later on, which we will be coming back to the board probably in a couple of months, but half of this, of the $465,000, would be applied to the implementation. So this is just the first phase of this implementation of what they come up with. Will probably come in the next, probably maybe 60 days or so.
So this contract has you think it's about 60 days before we get?
Well, this is the first piece, and then the second piece will probably come back within probably realistically, probably the February board meeting.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, do we have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes?
Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Ms. Arrieta?
Yes.
Thank you. Agenda item 16 is approved. We now move to agenda item 17. Discuss and take appropriate action on the agreement for the Selection Committee's recommendation for Medicare and Medicaid Managed Care Consulting Services, RFQ 91008-19002, and upon approval by the Board of Managers, the authorization for the President and CEO to negotiate and execute the agreement. Mr. Michael Nunez, Chief Financial Officer.
Okay, also with me, along with Raju, is also Janine Aguilera, who's our manager of our managed care contracts. Now, one of the areas that we've been very proud over the past several years or past decade has been the increase in our net patient revenue per adjusted admission, as that continues to grow every year. However, we do think that there's further opportunity to increase that as well, primarily because of our managed care contract. So this is what this RFQ is about. So we did seek out RFQs from companies to come help us assess our current managed care contracts and then implement a strategy to be dealing with all the managed care payers. On August 11th, similar to the other one which was mentioned, we did publish this. This was also published with the Greater Chamber of Commerce, and then also on our website, and was also published in the El Paso Times on August 11th and on August 18th. The proposal date was extended to September 19th because, again, several questions related to the RFP. The evaluation criteria is at the bottom of page 1. The firms that actually submitted proposals were Navigant, Advis, Boost Healthcare, and Quorum. The selection committee consisted of Raju Shah, Assistant Administrator, Revenue Cycle Management, Gloria Sanchez, who's our Director of Patient Financial Services, Janine Aguilera, who's our Director of Managed Care Contracting, and also Leticia Flores, who's our Corporate Controller. Of the 4 initial proposals, 2 finalists were actually selected to come to do on-site presentations so that they can tell us what their structure, what their approach was going to be to achieve results, and those were Navigant and Boost Healthcare. The selection committee did select Navigant for the following reasons. Was that their knowledge and use of payer-specific language in their proposal told us that they have experience and insight with working with managed care payers. They did understand a lot of the Texas Medicaid, the state of Texas Access Reform, more known as the START program. The more detailed review in terms of what they demonstrated for the review of contract language, their approach. They will also help out with negotiations, with us. For the most part, although we UMC want to have that relationship with the payers, if we need them to be at our site, they would also be there as well. So with that, the project budget for this is, on the assessment would be about $225,000. And then secondly, in the event of, depending upon the number of contracts that we get the actual assistance on for the details, that's what they would help us with the actual, specific strategy, design, and implementation of this. This was also something that El Paso Children did very successful probably about 1.5 years ago. Now, this is one of the items that we've had on our calendar for several years, but because of certain implementation, we wanted to get that done. So we got that done, so now we're moving on to the next steps to further improve our revenue cycle areas. So with that, if there's any questions, I would take them from the board.
Michael, how long will this take to be?
This, upon selection, we probably, the first assessment, given the holidays, we probably would get them on board shortly after the first part of January, and then probably after the assessment, and then start doing the more critical reviews contract probably starting in March.
Any questions or comments? If not, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes.
Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Ms. Arrieta?
Yes.
Thank you. Agenda item 17 is approved. We now move to agenda item 18. Discuss and take appropriate action on the agreement for the selection committee's recommendation for zero balance account recovery services, RFQ 91008190003, and upon approval by the Board of Managers, the authorization for the President and CEO to negotiate and execute the agreement. Mr. Michael Nunez, Chief Financial Officer.
Behind tab M, this is also somewhat related to another revenue cycle improvement area. In fact, this is very closely tied in with the managed care contract proposal, or the RFQ proposal that we just talked about. The objective of what we call the zero balance account recovery services is, now that we have identified in terms of the payments that have come in, and we have fully adjudicated patient claims down to their zero balance, what they come in and do, they'll look at our contract language and just and look to see, just to ensure, one, was the payment that we did receive, was that the full payment we were supposed to? Were there any other type of recoveries that they could do for us? Are there any unrecovered denials, payment discrepancies? So this is strictly contingency based. So going through, was it the RFP process, same process as the other ones, on or about August 11th, this RFQ went out. Courtesy RFQ notifications were sent out to about 7 consulting firms, was published in the El Paso Times August 11th, August 18th. Proposal date was also extended to September 19th. It was based upon the questions. Here there were about 7, there were 7 firms that actually submitted the proposals to us, and along with that, 2 finalists were actually selected. This selection committee also consisted of Gloria Sanchez, who's our Director of Patient Financial Services, Janine Aguilera, Director of Managed Care Contracting, and then also Camilla Brock, who's Account Manager of Patient Financial Services. So of the 7, 2 companies were actually selected to come on site, Ensemble, and then also Navigant, and Navigant was also mentioned in the previous RFP. The selection committee's recommendation was to select Navigant as well. One, they're one of Healthcare Financial Management Association's peer-reviewed companies. It's a Healthcare Financial Management Association is an association that I'm with, and certain vendors have to meet their HFMA peer review standards. So they're one of the premier vendors. The other things in terms of the continuity that they can work with us, not only in the managed care contracting, but as well on this zero balance contract review. They do have attorneys on staff, the workflow structure, et cetera. As mentioned before, this is contingency based, so any dollars that they get, their fee would be 21%, and then we would keep the 79 cents. So with that, we are recommending the board's approval of Navigant for this RFQ as well. Now, one of the things that, although that if we do go forward, given that that we do have Navigant for two of these three proposals, there still may be further negotiations, given that if they work on two proposals, that maybe perhaps we can get further discounts for us on both contracts.
Is the 21% pretty standard in the industry?
Yes, in terms, we're 21%, in terms, yes, compared to what the other ones were, yeah, there were.
Any questions? Comments? No? If not, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes?
Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Ms. Arietta?
Yes.
Thank you. Agenda 18 is approved. This does conclude our regular agenda. The time is 3:38 p.m. We will now prepare to go into executive session. We are now back in open session. The time is 4:49 p.m. Based on the discussion during executive session, we'll take one item at a time. The first, take appropriate action regarding appointments to the Emergence Health Network Board of Trustees. Please note, based on the discussion, this item, there will be no action taken. Next item, 25, take appropriate action regarding the appointment of directors of UMC El Paso Healthcare Incorporated. The motion is to requesting approval of the appointment of Jose David Burgos, medical doctor, Miguel Orellana, medical doctor, and Ismael Rodriguez Vasquez, medical doctor, as directors of UMC El Paso Healthcare Incorporated. May we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes?
Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Thank you. The appointment of the three directors to the UMC of Healthcare Incorporated is approved. Now we move on to the next open session item. Take appropriate action on the annual evaluation and merit pay increase for the President and Chief Executive Officer. The motion is requesting the approval of the 2019 annual evaluation of the President and CEO and approval of an adjustment to the base salary of the President and CEO of a total of 6.76% of the current base salary, with 1.76% based upon the results from the annual evaluation and 5% based upon a market study of the hospital CEOs, pursuant to the terms of the employment agreement with the President and CEO. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
I second.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes?
Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Thank you. Agenda item 26 is approved. We now move on to open session item 27, take appropriate action on the annual incentive compensation of the President and Chief Executive Officer, requesting the approval of the annual incentive compensation in the amount of 25.2% of the current base salary pursuant to the terms of the employment agreement with the President and CEO. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes?
Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Thank you. Agenda item 27 is approved. We now move to agenda item 28. Take appropriate action in the amendment to the employment agreement of the President and Chief Executive Officer. Based on the discussion during executive session, there will be no action taken at this time. May we now have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
I second.
Thank you. The Board of Managers meeting is officially adjourned. The time is 4:53 PM.